Well, must I say, this has probably been one of the slowest off seasons in all of baseball. Like, the only news that we've ever gotten was some dude on the Mets signing someone on the Mets signing somebody, and then the Mariners by miracle getting Josh Naylor, which we're going to talk about only for a few seconds because it's kind of a bit belated. And what a slow month for even for us YouTubers. Like, I've noticed that I haven't gotten much notifications out of you saying talking about Mariners, and I for myself when I post about the Mariners, I just don't say anything, or I just don't have anything really much to say. And I mean, not saying that it's anything to be ashamed of or anything, but it's just been it was a pretty bizarre month of November. Now, for myself personally, it was a combination of don't quit your day job. I was fighting a really just weird cold. Like, the cold was bad enough. Like, I was at least able to just work and do all my daytime stuff. But then when I got home, usually I'd be doing like YouTube. I just went to sleep or maybe watched a movie. So like there was a combination of that and just exhaustion and just like that. Don't quit your day job has really just taken over, but it is what it is. Either way, I still have a YouTube channel. It's still ongoing. I'm sure I'm going to come back to the way the consistency was. And I think deep down, and we were talking about right before the show, that maybe most of us are just mentally fatigued still from that huge Mariners playoff run. And at this point, it's starting to feel like it's been a year since that run even happened, even though it's only been less than 2 months, basically a month. But I think I have been feeling a little bit fatigued about the Mariners because that run really just knocked me out really badly. Like, I have two broken equipments for my Mariners gear. I mean, that's how much the playoffs really did. I mean, how do you feel in this past month with Mariners baseball kind of lacking in off-season activity and the fact that we talked about we're just kind of tired?
Yeah, I think fatigue is really the word. It's not, I don't mean it, I don't think you do either, like a negative tone. It's just, I'm still drained from the season. It was still such an emotional, ending to it, but such an amazing, fun season too, that, still kind of living in it from how great it was, but also still, sad and frustrated from how it ended. My channel always has a little bit of a lull after the season. I'm just kind of on a burnout from baseball. That so I take a little bit of a step back unless there is just breaking news to talk about. And like I said, there really hasn't been much activity. You had that Mets Rangers trade. Josh Naylor's back. I think both of our channels we talked about that. I think another thing too, like Seahawks have been good this year, so that's kind of kept our attention. Moved on to football a little bit. I know for me, that's kind of been a nice um, palate cleanser, I guess, from the Mariners. So certainly not, negative on anything that's happened. It's, getting Naylor back was huge. We'll talk about that. And just kind of been a slow start. I think the winter meetings are coming up soon, but we talked about this before before the show started, but like, I mean, spring training, what the first game's like mid-February, right? Something like that, maybe towards the end of it. I mean, shoot, we're 2.5 months away. That from spring training here. Like it's going to be here before you know it. 2.5 months ago from today was, when the playoffs started. So from that point to now is like from now to spring training, and baseball is going to be back up and going here. It's all pretty quickly. But yeah, I think fatigue is just it. It was a great season, but a rough ending, and that just kind of drains you.
Yeah, which is why, like, when I see the likes of like Marine Layer podcasts, and although I don't really have much interaction with them, but I do give them a heck of a lot of credit for, based on the videos that I see from them, they're like, it seems they're just coming out of, it's like they're making nothing into something of content to talk about. And it's hard for us YouTubers that when there's not really news to rely on, then we have to say, okay, what else is there to talk about? And we're also in that mindset sometimes that sometimes we just don't want to talk about random things because maybe only 10 people see it and some of us just don't. Sometimes I don't even want to make the effort to be like, oh yeah, the Mariners just signed this minor leaguer, here's a video on this minor league nobody. Like, there's not really much to say on that. So I know that we're supposed to be consistent, but hey, we have our full-time careers and we're just do our best we can to balance it. And there's even other YouTubers out there that I have also seen, which has actually been terrifying, is YouTubers that are even in like the 100Ks, they're even considering quitting for 9 to 5 because they're just not making anything on YouTube anymore. So it is a scary world in the content creating world. So only thing we ask from us is just love. That's all I'm gonna ask. Like I would say like, oh yeah, subscribe. Yeah, no, but you know what? Just the love and the other thing I ask from all of you is something like this.
All right, guys, goodbyes only. Don't forget it.
Stop it.
Thank you.
Yeah, just anything like that, and that's what will keep our motivation going. Like for example, like last month, and I know I'm just going on a tangent, but when I went to a high school football game, a few of these teenagers actually came up to me and asking, "Hey, aren't you the Rooftop Sports?" I'm like, "Yes, I am." And they're like, "Yeah, we like your videos." And that was pretty cool. So even like little things like that can be more powerful than someone hitting the subscribe button or donating an X amount of dollars or putting a comment of saying I agree or disagree. Sometimes it's just those little things that make a difference for people like us that are trying to make not so much of a career, but something for us to keep continuing to do because it is a lot of work, but it's something that we love to do. But sometimes the thing we love to do it just takes work, and it is what it is. But anyways, we're getting a little bit sidetracked. To Josh Naylor, I'm just going to touch on it a little bit. I mean, I'm happy that they got it done because who are we going to replace him with? Like Ty France, which the Mariners have pretty much already moved on from him. Were you going to put Luke Raley full time, or were you going to find anyone in the prospect pool for the Mariners, which there really isn't much for a first base prospect? And the other reason why I like Josh Naylor, it's not so much that he hits those big home runs sometimes, but his numbers in T-Mobile Park also made it worth it because he was a 350 hitter in T-Mobile Park, and for a stadium that is known to suppress offensive hitters, Josh Naylor was not willing to make that excuse. And not only did he hit so well in T-Mobile Park and made some of the biggest hits in Mariners history throughout that season, he also was the most efficient. He was actually the best base stealer in Major League Baseball. He's the slowest guy in the major leagues, and he was still stealing bases efficiently, just like when we saw in Game 5 of the American League Division Series when Josh Naylor was taking gutsy moves to steal bases. And I think he did score on that. So I'm happy that we got him back, and they got him for it was like a 5 year, 92 million. I thought he was going to go into the hundreds, but they got him at I would say a pretty reasonable price. Now the only thing is he's just got to hit that baseball and do exactly what he did in 25, if not more. So hopefully we will see more out of Josh Naylor going forward.
Yeah, and I think just a good applause to Jerry, Justin, everybody just getting that done. I've never seen. I talked about in my video. I don't think I've ever seen a player more universal, like that every fan agrees on bringing back somebody or bringing somebody in. There's always a counter to something, or well, excuse me, maybe we can do this, maybe we can do that. But with Josh Naylor, everyone's like, no, bring him back. Like I've got, out of all my subs and all the comments about Naylor, I didn't see a single person skeptical. Like Polanco, there could probably be some debate, right? Gino, some debate. You know what I mean? Like about what you do and how much money. Everybody was like, just give Naylor a blank check, bring him back. Don't get too cute with it. They didn't. They brought him back. I think it's a good way to start the offseason to set the tone. And you talk about some of the on the field stuff, and just I think what he brings to the clubhouse is really important. He's just that guy you believe in there, that guy that you go, he is not going to let us lose this baseball game type of player. And I really think they've been missing someone like that. So, one thing we liked about the Randy Arozarena deal was like, hey, you got him last year, and then you had a full season of Randy coming up. Now, obviously, Naylor wasn't there to re-sign him, but it's going to be really cool to see Josh Naylor for a full 162 in a Mariners uniform. Just a perfect fit for this team, this ball club, and I think a fair contract as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't have imagined who was going to replace Josh Naylor. Like, even if, like, let's say the Mariners' best case scenario got Pete Alonso, sure, he's like a 30, 40, maybe 50 home run hitter, but there are things that even Pete Alonso wouldn't have been able to do that Josh Naylor can do. Now, of course, is Pete Alonso the better baseball player? No freaking question about it. Sometimes it's about the baseball fit, and I do think that Josh Naylor was one of the better fit on the Mariners team. Now, that's if Josh Naylor does well. Now, if he does stink it up like we have seen it before, I'm still not going to fault the Mariners for it. At that point, that's up to Josh Naylor if he wants to either, I guess, milk the contract and enjoy too much of it, or if he wants to think of it as a long-term commitment to help the Mariners get to that World Series, because that's what we've been longing for. And for some fans, they've been waiting for literally 50 years. And someone like me, 25 years is what I've been waiting for. So, I mean, I hate to say it. I don't like Jerry, Justin, and John. I'm not a big fan of them, but I mean, I got to give credit where credit is due. Like, they actually did it. My only hope is I just hope that the Mariners, they just don't sit on it and go, yep, we spent our money. Josh Naylor's our guy. We don't need anybody else. We'll just make it work. No, let's hope they don't do that. Let's hope that they double down and make sure they put themselves in the best possible position to get to the World Series, because nothing would be more mind just killing by seeing the Mariners get that close to a World Series and the next season they don't even make the playoffs. I mean, it has happened. Like 1995 and 1996, they were within 2 games of the World Series. And the next season, even with the best offense in baseball, they didn't make the playoffs. We saw it in 2001 where we thought, hey, if the Mariners even won 90 games after their 116, as long as they make playoffs, and they can still have a good shot for Worlds. Nope, that never happened. And then we waited another, 24 years to get to this point, just to finally complain that the Mariners blew a 3-2 lead and I busted my helmet. And that was my 2001 helmet. And I'm still crushed that I broke it. So there's that for Josh Naylor. Now, there's been rumors going on that looks like Ketel Marte may be on the trading block, which really isn't a surprise because Arizona's kind of been unloading players. I mean, they traded away Josh Naylor and Eugenio Suarez to the Mariners. Now it makes you wonder if Ketel Marte could be that next guy for the Mariners to get. And let's see where Ketel Marte is at. He is around 31 years old. He still has a long-term contract. Like, it's still a pretty long one. He's going to be a free agent by as early as 31. His salary right now is around the $15 to $22 million at most, and has a lot of incentives in it. And I think it might be a contract that the Mariners might want to take on, because it says salary may increase by up to $5.5 million based on the year performance and the MVP voting. So I think it's something that, hey, why not take on someone that has like an incentive type of contract, not like a Scott Boras kind of contract where it's like 25 million flat straight out or 30 million flat straight out, but it looks like it's more of an incentive contract. And it is an absolute need because the Mariners, their infield is absolutely struggling right now. Like J.P. Crawford, he has shown that I think his time, unfortunately, is getting close. Now, let alone that Ketel Marte is more of a second baseman anyway. So you can put him at second base so that way you can maybe buy time for Cole Young to be a little bit more developed, because it's still very unclear if Cole Young is actually going to pan out. He did show a great amount of potential, which I'll give him that. But at the same time, it just kind of felt like he just kind of felt a little bit raw on that. So it is an idea. The question is, it's about how much it's going to cost to get him. And I would imagine it's probably going to be a little bit more than what the Mariners gave up for Josh Naylor, because they didn't really give up that much for Josh Naylor. And the Mariners certainly gave up less than what I thought for Eugenio Suarez. Like, the best prospect that they gave up was Tyler Locklear. So I would think that this would be a big one. And I'm kind of on the 50-50 if they should do it. But now if they do it, then it is a great showing that Mariners are serious for a potential World Series, and that they're also seeing that maybe there isn't a guarantee that the current Mariners infield prospects are actually going to pan out, especially like Cole Young, Cole Emerson, Feldman, Celestine. We don't know for sure. So I mean, I wanted to get your opinion on should the Mariners go for someone like a Ketel Marte, especially in that trade market, especially if Mariners don't really go for anyone as free agency, which we don't know.
Yeah, I think Marte is probably as big a splash as you can make, minus Scooble, in terms of players out there. Good defender, and there isn't much he does poorly offensively either. He walks, he doesn't strike out a ton. I'm looking at his Statcast page here. Everything is in the red for him. He's just a tremendous baseball player that would immediately give you that impact player and impact bat to go along with Julio, Cal Raleigh, and Josh Naylor as well in this lineup, and really would separate him. Like you said, second and third base remain open for the Mariners. You have Cole Young, Ben Williamson. My gut is they don't want to roll with both of them going into opening day. I think they're probably okay with one. One of them starting, or maybe one being pushed by some veteran or something like that, and seeing what can happen. So Marte would be huge. Tremendous ball player. In terms of cost, yeah, it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you something for sure. A Ryan Sloan, maybe a Kate Anderson. I don't think it would cost both, but probably one of those guys for the D-backs for pitching. Maybe somebody, it probably would cost you Cole Young, and you might as well. I mean, if you're going to get Ketel Marte, there's no purpose in having Cole Young. You know what I mean? It's like, the debate could be, who do you like better over the next 5 years? Fine, we can have that discussion. But if you're willing to trade Ketel Marte, I mean, what's the purpose of holding on to Cole Young? Send him in the trade, and then probably another prospect, and then maybe somebody else. Maybe get a reliever back too. I don't know if Arizona has anybody that's interesting in that bullpen, but maybe you can bring somebody back with Marte. I'm all for it. Again, it would always depends on the cost. There always is a limit to some of this, and the price gets more expensive. And then it's what do the Mariners like? Is it too expensive for them over the next few years? Do they like the fact that Marte is under control? So you've got this guy for multiple years. You have Marte and Naylor on the right side of your infield. Essentially Marte, Naylor, Julio, and Cal is your core. I don't know where that puts them at financially. I'm assuming they'd like to get one of the pitchers locked up long term here somewhat soon. So maybe you run into some crosshairs with that. In terms of the player himself, though, yeah, I'm absolutely fine with it. I'm sure there is a limit where I'd go, no, I'm not sending all of that to Arizona if it's something crazy. But these trades never are. Everyone will always talk about, oh, it's going to be Emerson, Montez, Sloan, Anderson, Cole Young, Arroyo, and that's what's going to get you Marte. It's never those. It's never that crazy. It would probably be something like Sloan, Cole Young, another maybe infield prospect, maybe Arroyo, or maybe, maybe even, I know it doesn't have much value, maybe throw Emerson Hancock in there, gives them a guy they can plug in their rotation this year. Something like that. It would be a hefty price, but these trades are never anything. It would still leave the Mariners in very good position. I don't think it would cost them Colt Emerson or Laz Montez or all of their big three pitching prospects, Anderson, Sloan, Changea, that are coming up.
And don't forget Harry Ford too. Like there is a good possibility. It looks like that he could have that Mitch Garver role going into next year. I think everyone would agree that he deserves that chance to try to take up that Mitch Garver role. And if you think about it, like he's going to be the backup catcher, and then there's no guarantees that he's going to blossom into a superstar anyway. So I would give it a chance and see if he can make it work, and also have him do the occasional DHing, especially depending if the Mariners bring back Jorge Polanco. And I know that there is a fair debate on whether they want to bring him back. Like did the Mariners, did Jorge Polanco was he back to actually being his form, or did he just overachieve for a new contract? Which, by the way, he did opt out of that contract, and don't blame him for it. It was kind of I thought it was gutsy of him to do it because he also has injury issues. He didn't show much of it in the 25 season, but it's hard to see any baseball team go for Jorge Polanco with a long-term commitment. Like I think at most, I think he's going to get like maybe a 2-year contract, and it's probably going to be like a mutual option or like maybe a player option. But I think teams would probably be trying to see if they can negotiate to get like a team option out of him. So, I mean, yeah, Ketel Marte. I mean, it would show that the Mariners are serious for a World Series run. I looked at his numbers when he plays in T-Mobile Park. He is a 263 hitter, so it's not the end. Can't believe I have to look up T-Mobile Park numbers now because everyone talks about ballpark suppression, which there's truth to it. But at the same time, Mariners also have that philosophy of living and dying by the home run, which they don't have to do that. Like not runs are not always do not always have to be manufactured by just home runs, which by the way, that's what they literally did throughout the playoffs. Like it was a live and die home run offense throughout the playoffs, and that drove me nuts, honestly. But I guess we'll see. But I don't know if who knows if they're gonna do it. It's probably not. I think if I were them, I'd probably still go for someone like a Tarek Skubal because in the playoffs, like I hate to say it, like we saw George Kirby, Logan Gilbert, Luis Castillo, they were expected to be the big time pitchers in the playoffs, and unfortunately, like they got pretty much all of them got absolutely just drilled, and it was painful to watch, which is why I think getting that number one would be nice, which is why ideas are being thrown out like getting a Tarek Skubal and definitely a Ketel Marte to get some big time players. So that's what the Mariners need. They need someone that can complement like the Cal Raleigh and Julio Rodriguez. So that way it can take pressure off of Julio as well, especially in a playoff game or just any kind of high leverage game. You don't, when you have some players that are protecting him, maybe he won't like be swinging for ball 4 or ball 8 like all the time. Like, remember we saw it in the American League Championship Series? We're like, okay, Julio, just calm down. Just try to work the count. Try to, if you can get on base, great. So let Cal Raleigh do it because I'd rather lose with Cal Raleigh than Julio. And when we saw him swing and miss, I was like, yep, classic Julio Rodriguez right there.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely a philosophy that you'd like to see them get a little bit more, station to state, not station to station, but a little bit more put the ball in play contact, especially in the playoffs when you're facing better pitchers. Marte versus Skubal. Marte is, under club control for longer. Skubal's 1 year. Pitchers have more, injury issues and everything. So, both would be great. That would be cool. Do both. Go out and just have an all-out off season and get them both in here. That would probably gut that farm system pretty big at that point. But it'll be interesting to see what they do. I'm kind of with you. My gut would be no. I think Brendan Donovan is someone they're probably more likely to target. In a trade, and it sounds like there's been some interest there. I feel like that's a guy that's come up for trade talks for the Mariners every year for the past few years. I think that's more likely than Marte. They seem to like the guys that are more, not that they prefer second tier players to top tier players, but I think they like the cost of it a little bit more. The Randy Arozarena versus the Kyle Tucker, maybe. I don't even know where Tucker and Randy ended up ranking, but kind of that, because they can send more of their second tier prospects to go get Donovan, who's, is still a productive player and gives them an upgrade. So I think that's far more likely than Ketel Marte. But it's good to bring these guys up, right? Because the Mariners have the prospects to get anybody. Like they could, like that's why we talk about Skubal, right? Like I know people have kind of been like, Mariners aren't getting Skubal, but if they want, if he's traded and if they are interested, they have the ammo to do it. The Mariners can put a package together for any player available in a trade. They absolutely could. Now, I don't know what other teams value all the Mariners guys at, but for the most part, there isn't a player that if the Tigers came out tomorrow and said, we are 100% trading Skubal, the Mariners absolutely have the ammo to do it. They absolutely have the ammo to get Ketel Marte. So it's good to talk about these guys because it is a possibility. And maybe, who knows, maybe now that the Mariners were a win away from the World Series, maybe Jerry, Justin, company, even Stanton, maybe maybe they do go all in on somebody because they go, hey, we were close and now we see it. So now we want to go over the top and try to really push for some more superstars to get a ring. So who knows? We've never seen them operate, after a season like this before. But my gut is you're going to see more of like the Brendan Donovan types. I think make more sense. Well, make more sense maybe isn't the right word, but is more logical for what we've seen from this front office and the type of player.
It would be more of a John Stanton thing. Like if the Mariners had like even like a Paul Allen type owner, like for the Seahawks from a long time ago, then yeah, Ketel Marte would be someone that would be more of a debated name, and a Tarek Skubal, because I remember after that 2012 season when Russell Wilson, like out of nowhere, along with that defense, led the Seahawks into like what they were literally like like literally 2 seconds away from the NFC Championship. And Paul Allen did not mess around. He doubled down, got Percy Harvin, which did work for the playoff run against the Saints and the Super Bowl, so it was worth it. Michael Bennett, Cliff Averill, when they doubled down, like they did not do what the Mariners did after their 95 run, where they're like, oh yeah, we made our money, yeah, we can just trade everyone now. But no, but like Seahawks double down, and I'm really hoping the Mariners do, which is why we're going to get into a little bit of that free agency. And I've noticed that free agency has just been absolutely slow. Like the first move I felt like we really saw was the extension of Josh Naylor. And then we saw what the Rangers trading away Marcus Semien for Brandon Nimmo, which by the way, that was a John Morosi take that he thought the Mariners were going to get John Morosi in 22. And yeah, that did not age well at all. And then, I mean, where was I? Like then the Mets got some pitcher from the bullpen or something like that. So it's been a very slow market, which is why I think that this is actually the best market for the Mariners to take advantage of. Now, don't get me wrong, the free agency class is pretty underwhelming. Like the best players, I'll name like the best free agents of each player, and I'll let you make the judgment if you feel overwhelmed or underwhelmed by it. But for catchers, not that it matters, but JT Realmuto, and then first baseman Pete Alonso. I mean, it's Pete Alonso. But after that, it's like Ryan O'Hearn, Carlos Santana, Nathaniel Howell. Justin Turner's name is just thrown in there just for fun. Second base, Willie Castro is their best one, and then Jorge Polanco after that. Dylan Moore is even considered the fourth best second base free agent in baseball. And then shortstop Miguel Rojas is your best one. And then, of course, there's Bo Bichette, Ha-Sung Kim. Third base, Bregman and Suarez. They're up in their 30s, though, so they're not really in their primes anymore. Left field, well, it's like Miguel Andujar. Center field, Cody Bellinger. Okay, that's a good one. And then Kyle Tucker for right field. So this is definitely not the free agency class that we saw over the last few years. I mean, even last year's free agency class was pretty underwhelming, but I think this one is even more underwhelming, which is why I think it's the best one for the Mariners to like. And when you hear that the free agency class is a bad class, I wouldn't say just jump to conclusions like, oh yeah, there's nobody, let's get nobody. No, I think this is the best free agency to go for, because even in like a not so, and even in a very underwhelming free agency class, there's still quality players you can get. You're just not going to get the superstar ones, but you can get some of those that can help you put you over the top. So unfortunately, in the Mariners ownership standpoint, I think this is their best free agency class because they don't have to go crazy for any one of those players. Like honestly, like maybe Bo Bichette, you don't have to go crazy for him because no one's really going for him right now because he's had a very up and down time with Toronto, which is why I think he's also a pretty attractive option. The most money he made was $17 million in his contract with the Toronto Blue Jays, and it's very unclear that they're even going to bring him back. Like I don't know if they are even going to bring him back. It's very unclear if they're going to. Like last season, yeah, he had a good season. 18 home runs, 94 RBIs, a bounce back from his disastrous 24 season. And looking at his contract right now, as he's running his 20s, he's only made about 17 million. I mean, maybe at most he'll get to 20 million if teams are willing to do that. But they're also going to look at the fact that he's been he's kind of been. They really are. I guess might look at that 24 season and be like, yeah, he was pretty bad. But I also think Mariners should not saying like just completely go for the likes of Bo Bichette, but also actually go for someone like in free agency for quality infielders because I just don't want to see another full season of JP Crawford. I hate to say it. I had fun watching him. I liked his backhanded play from 2019. I liked his 2023 season when that was arguably his prime. We technically saw the Grand Slam home run together just on different channels, but he hasn't really done anything much after that. Like he was very streaky in 25. Had a lot of meltdowns too, like getting himself tossed like more than he should. And then his defense was also very disappointing throughout the playoffs. Like his defense looks good, like when the ball's coming right to him. But aside from that, it looks like there was just plays that he really should have put his 100% on. And for the long term, especially with his contract up, I would definitely explore other options, which is why I think Bo Bichette should be someone that they should go for. I don't think he's going to make money like the Kyle Tuckers or even Bregman or Cody Bellinger. I personally believe he'll make less than at least most of them. So I think Bo Bichette is someone that they should go for, especially like let's say if now 2 weeks from now or next week winter meetings can happen and everyone gets signed like left and right, right? That could also happen. But what if Bo Bichette is like, what if it's taking long to sign him? What if they're just very hesitant and maybe that market value will drop? Just like in real estate, which by the way, that's also part of my don't quit your day job. Houses have been sitting on the market. And when they sit on the market for an extended amount of time, then at least there's a chance where you can negotiate for a lower price to an extent, depends on the seller and the agent, of course. But why not for this kind of free agency class? Like we haven't heard anything about anyone signing anybody. Now, again, next week, everything can change. Bo Bichette signs there. Cody Bellinger signs there. Bregman signs there. Suarez signs there. But if they're like still on the market, take advantage of it.
Yeah, it's I think when this free agency class being as kind of mediocre as it is, you can maybe they take advantage and get a guy. Could also be something where a lot of these guys sit there for a while too. Like Bichette's a tough one. You probably have to play second base. I don't see him being a Mariner because I don't. If you sign play short, I mean, then you've got to trade JP, which I don't think is super realistic. I think your best bet at short is starting with JP and then hoping Colt Emerson's ready, by a certain point, and then maybe making that transition. Maybe you can trade JP at that point. Someone takes on some of the salary, and then you can make moves elsewhere with that money. So it'll be interesting though. Like I said, I mean, you get to the winter meetings, and a lot of times that's when things really start heating up and the contracts start coming. So, I mean, we've seen a little bit. Dylan Cease signs, Naylor signs. So, but usually, one domino falls, and then the rest kind of keep going. So, we'll see. Maybe some of the Mariners can play to their advantage. Would like to see them get involved, with some things. I expect, most of their moves to be trades. That's kind of just the route they go. Maybe something like a free agent. I think like Willie Castro is a free agent. I could see that like for competition with Ben Williamson at third base. It's funny actually. Dylan Moore kind of makes sense a little bit for a utility role. I would be shocked if there's no movement, if maybe he does get a spring training invite for the Mariners. I don't think it's completely crazy. You do need some competition at second and third. If nothing else, like if they do, I'm not saying they should, but if they do want to roll with Cole Young and Ben Williamson, I think you need to bring in a couple guys to push them, Dylan Moore, Ramon Urias, guys like that, just to let them know that the job is not 100% theirs in spring training. So, I think, and relievers, I think that's another area where the team will look. Not the big, we saw Devin Williams go to the Mets for a pretty big contract, but I think that's another thing with trades you'll see them get in on. I think they're going to try to bolster the bullpen. I would be shocked if they make 2 trades for relievers. They tried at the deadline to get Duran from Minnesota. So clearly they know they need another arm. I think the playoffs, you mentioned the rotation. I agree with that. I thought it kind of, I won't say failed the team in the postseason, but definitely let them down. And the bullpen to an extent kind of did too, right? Like, in some of those games against Toronto that were blowouts, it's because the bullpen couldn't. I'm not saying like being down 5-0 is good, but like, hey, you hold it 5-0, you never know in the postseason. But they couldn't do that. They didn't have those guys. So, and I'm not talking like the Caleb Fergusons of the world that, yeah, you always got to have one or two of those guys to fill out your bullpen. But going and getting a couple legitimate arms. So, we'll see if they do that. But I think just most of it's going to be trades. And I think the free agents are going to be more maybe, I don't know. Like I said, we've never seen them this close in terms of things. So maybe they surprise us. I mean, truthfully, they've signed probably the biggest free agent so far that's not a pitcher. They've probably signed the biggest offensive free agent in Josh Naylor. So as much as I'm saying this, like, they've been just as active in free agency as anybody else so far. It's just we don't view Naylor that way because he was with the team. But, deep down, we all thought there was a possibility that he goes somewhere else. Like, I think we're all optimistic about it. But, I think we talked about it. There was that kind of pit in the stomach that they're going to get cute with this and they're going to lose them. You know what I mean? And they didn't. So, we'll see. Maybe they do go in. Maybe they put Bichette at second base or something like that. Be a rough defense, middle infield wise. But I think you'd have enough offense that who cares?
Honestly, I'm on the side of J.P. Crawford taking a backup role and even put him in the doghouse if you have to. Even trade, but of course, if the Mariners do trade prospects, not trade prospects, if they do, like, let's say in the best case scenario, they get Bo Bichette or someone like a Brendan Donovan, or if like even Cole Emerson pulls the 2022 Julio Rodriguez that they force the Mariners to put him on the starting lineup. I mean, if the Mariners were to trade J.P. Crawford, it's probably going to include not only J.P. Crawford being part of that trade package, it's probably going to include any decent prospect out of the Mariners in order for that team to take on his contract. Or do the Mariners still pay for a majority of the contract just to not have him be there? Like, don't get me wrong, JP was a cool guy. He was a fun guy. But I think his time is up. Like, he did show a bit of it that his time was up.
JP's a tough one. Like, his numbers overall weren't awful last season too. I don't think we should just dismiss JP as being like, definitely better first half than second half. He definitely tailed off pretty big, but the overall offensive numbers were still decent. I just don't see a scenario where they're, to your point, like if you trade, I just don't think the trade's going to be there. I don't know if you'd have to throw in a prospect, but you're not getting anything back in return. I think the only way they trade JP would be if they view Colt Emerson as ready. Then they might say, hey, we'll eat half the salary. Someone, will probably, but he's also tough to trade. Like he's not a terrible player, but he's also doesn't have a ton of trade value because of his contract, kind of to your point. So it's like you're kind of stuck a little bit there. And I think your best bet is just waiting on Colt Emerson to take over that role. And then you don't care what you get for JP, trade him, even if you eat, half the salary and you get back some D+ prospects somewhere, fine, like whatever, not a big deal. You shed yourself with some of that money and you feel really good with Colt Emerson, one of the top prospects in baseball, taking over, at shortstop for you. So my gut would be 90% that JP's your opening day shortstop. It's tough. Like, and I think, if Bichette was like a defensive wizard, I could maybe see them being like, yeah, but he's not going to be any better there defensively. Definitely an upgrade offensively, but then what do you do with Colt Emerson? So I think you're rolling with it's tough. I want to see this team get better defensively. Something I talked about in a video not too long ago. It's just like, where do you do it though? Like, it's tough because I'm with you on JP. Like in a perfect world, I probably would move on from him too. I just think, Emerson's probably not quite ready. Like you said, unless you get 2022 Julio, maybe you do. Never know. It's just, I think you're probably kind of stuck. And I think JP's good enough where it's not like, I'm trying to think, like it's not to a guy we talked about being off camera. Like it's not like you're stuck with Sean Figgins there to open the season. Like JP's probably good enough where if it's 2.5 months, you're probably fine with him hitting 8th or 9th. And maybe there's a little resurgence, maybe like last year, a decent first half gets some value, maybe back up a little bit, makes it easier to trade. But I'd be pretty shocked if JP's not starting at shortstop. I'm kind of done too. I'm with you on that. I think it's time, but it's just not quite there yet with Emerson ready to take over. Probably, I don't know. Maybe spring training he does.
Well, that's what we'll find out in spring training, right? I think that will also give us a good idea what Cole Emerson can do. But I think even if he had like a 350 kind of like performance, I still think they're going to start him in spring training. Like he has to go 2022 Julio to maybe squeak into it. I mean, Julio, the reason why he was able to get rushed kind of. I mean, who was there in the outfield? It was Jesse Winker, Jared Kelnick when he was still raw talent, and then there's someone else. Yeah, Taylor Trammell. Like, yeah, it was really wide open for him anyway. But we will see, and I know how much I've been dogging on J.P. Crawford. I looked up his numbers, fine. It was actually his second best season of his career. His best season was 23. His second best was actually 25. He batted 265, almost as good as his 23 season. He had a 350 OBP. I mean, OPS plus is a 111, so he actually was statistically an above average player. It's just that when I saw him on defense, it was just that painful. And then in the playoffs,
bad playoffs, yeah.
Yeah, 200 batting average. Like he was someone you just could not reasonably depend on. So there was also that.
Well, it's one of the reasons they didn't win, right? Like they didn't get that production. If JP had hit like JP did in the regular season, they didn't get production from Dom. They didn't get production from Robles. I'm not saying those guys had to be studs, but it is kind of one of the reasons they ended up not getting, there's some other things too, the rotation, the bullpen a little bit, but like the bottom of the order didn't give them anything in that postseason. It leaves us with a bad taste. That's kind of why I was bringing up JP's numbers. Like, wasn't bad last year. I mean, again, I'm with you. Like defensively, done, and he can be super frustrating and streaky, but he's still not like a terrible. He's a decent enough hitter. And to your point, yeah, I don't see any way that Colt Emerson would beat him out in spring training. I mean, maybe they do. Who knows? Maybe they do trade him. They probably. I think it's tough. It's tough.
I don't think they will. They're not going to.
I'm with you.
I don't mean to interrupt, but
no, I'm with you.
It's hard to see them getting rid of JP. Like it's like very contingent on Colt Emerson. Like what's going to happen? They're probably going to start out with JP Crawford, and if best case scenario, if Colt Emerson like gets called up like in June, and he hits the lights out, then sure you're going to trade him. Like sure, but we don't know if that's going to happen. Like Colt Emerson could also be Jared Kelnick. That could also happen.
Yeah.
That's the tough part of baseball, which is why I love the sport, because no one is guaranteed squat. You could be the number 1 overall pick, and you could be a bust, and you could be an undrafted free agent that had just escaped from a country barely, and he becomes like one of the best baseball players ever. Like Yordan Alvarez, I don't think he was even a draft pick. He was actually an escape. He actually escaped from Cuba to go to Haiti, and he was supposed to be a nobody, and he turned out to be one of the best. That's one of the beauties of baseball is you don't need top picks, but also it's tough because your best prospects can be your worst players, and then your worst prospects can be your best players. So,
yep.
I mean, we don't know. I mean, that's why there's the conversations like, should the Mariners get Ketel Marte? Should the Mariners get Bo Bichette? And even then, I'll even stretch even further. Like, should the Mariners even go for anyone in outfield that's let alone good? like, I have to say all these names. Cody Bellinger in the outfield, but of course that's not going to happen. Not going to do that, but it's clear that the Mariners need an actual outfielder aside from Arozarena and Julio Rodriguez, because Victor Robles was he kind of just looked like he disappeared. And then Canzone, as much as a great season he had in 25, just disappeared in the playoffs and amounted to unfortunately nothing. And I guess the one last debate I really do have is Eugenio Suarez. I know that everyone's talking about that his numbers were absolutely garbage in 25. He had 13 home runs, but batted 189, 255 OBP. Slugging percentage was arguably one of the worst of his career. OPS plus was 94. He was a below average player. And then even when you get to the playoffs, he was still a 213 hitter. Also didn't really contribute much. He got some big hits though, like that grand slam home run. But I know this is just an emotional take, but I still want him back, even if he bats like that. And I know that's really bold to say, but there's something that he does for this team. He is a locker room presence. He's there for his brother Julio Rodriguez, not biological, but he's there for him. He's calmed him down. And it's that good vibes that he just brings to the table for the Mariners.
All right, guys, goodbyes only. Don't forget it.
Stop it.
Thank you.
And the Mariners won their games. Like before the Mariners got Eugenio Suarez back, they were like almost a fringe, just above 500 team. And when he got to the team, not saying he was the direct reason, but there were some moments where his presence did contribute to some of the Mariners' biggest victories. And knowing that he's up on his upper part of his age, that's why I think the Mariners should just at least give him one more contract. And it probably does. I doubt it's going to be like a 5-year thing. But if you can get him for a short term, especially with the small window the Mariners have, especially with Logan Gilbert, George Kirby are cutting it close with their arbitration. Randy Arozarena is going to be a free agent after this season. That's why I think they should just try to do it, because I just don't know about Ben Williamson. I just don't see it quite yet. Like he showed some potential, great defense. He couldn't be any less disciplined than like a Julio Rodriguez or any of the other big Mariner players that really just live and die by home runs. But I'm still on the edge of wanting to bring back Suarez. I know that's emotional, but I want him to be part of another potential huge playoff run, because he was a huge part of bringing the Mariners back to the playoffs. Now, if most people are going to say, no, his batting stinks, this and that, fine, so be it. But at the same time, I also look at other things that are beyond the baseball numbers, especially for someone that criticizes the whole analytics philosophy. But I also look at stuff that just cannot be measured.
Yeah, I think it just depends on how the offseason plays out. I think there's a world where I'd go fine, 1-year deal, not a terrible, bet on someone that's got good pop. I'm a little surprised looking at a Savant page that I thought it would be a little more red. It's pretty bad. The strikeouts are terrible. The walks are below average. Even the defense doesn't come out real great. So I'm not completely against it. I think there's a world where, as we get closer to spring training, and if he's still sitting there and you've done some other things and you're looking at third base and, Ben's maybe, something in the offseason is just like, man, he's just not getting it. We don't feel confident. I think there's worse things you can do than say, hey, 1-year deal. I don't know what the market's going to be like for Gino. It's a tough one because he's really good with Arizona last year. And then, I think he goes from an extreme pitcher's park to hitter's park. So, while the numbers were certainly skewed in Arizona, they're probably skewed in Seattle as well. He definitely is, a great clubhouse presence and brings a lot of that to the table. So I think that, does factor in. I'm sure the guys in the dugout and the clubhouse would love to have him back. I guarantee you they'd all be excited about that. Again, like Williamson's a kind of a tough one. I'm a little bit higher on him than some people. I think that the power thing is kind of the struggle there, but it's not a lack of strength. It's a lack of like launch angle with his swing. I think, he did go back to Tacoma and have a little bit of a power surge. If that's for real and he can be a 10 to 12 home run guy with his defense and give you like a 105 WRC plus, which would be a big improvement from what he did last year with his contact skills. I actually think that's exactly what this lineup kind of needs is that type of player, to offset some of the strikeout stuff. But he's got work to do to get there. With Gino, you're probably getting, league average offense with a potential 30 home runs. So, there's also the chance Gino might just be kind of done, too. It'll be interesting to see what his market is. So I'm not like completely against it. I'd probably like to see the offseason play out, though, and that would be a move I'd prefer if they did it towards the end. You know what I mean? Kind of like Polanco last year, where it's like things didn't work out, and they kind of went, hey, listen, Polanco's out there. We think he's recovered from the injury. We're going to bring him back. If that's something with, Gino, and it's like, hey, 1 year's 10 million or something, free agency's over, trades have kind of whittled down. Maybe they've added Brendan Donovan. They've added a couple relievers. Then sure. Like, and if he stinks, Ben goes to Tacoma, works on some things, and he can come up. So I'm certainly, probably not over to where you are on it, but I'm certainly not like, I don't think it's like, oh my gosh, how could they even consider doing that either? So, but I'd like to wait and see how the offseason plays out. I'm really curious where he ends up and what he gets. It's a really interesting guy in free agency, I think.
I mean, that could happen. Like Gino Suarez could be the 2026 Mariners McDonald's pickup. That could happen. Or winter meetings happen and everyone go, oh my God, we gotta get Suarez. This other team's other team will go, we gotta get Suarez, we gotta get Bellinger, gotta get Alonso. Yeah. That could also happen. Like maybe people are just waiting for winter meetings. But at the same time, we've seen signings happen before winter meetings before too. So this one just feels it's a little bit more unusual than it has been that I felt like. Now, if anyone disagrees with me and if I'm completely wrong, put it in the comments. And if you want to call me a fool for it, I mean, if that makes your day, go for it. But I don't know. I mean, I appreciate your comments about the Ben Williamson, which I can see where you're coming from too. It's just that can he actually do it? And no, he doesn't have to hit 20 home runs. Even if he could hit 5 home runs, but if he's like a 300 hitter and he can sneak in like 20 doubles or something like that, and is like you said, his OPS plus is like over 100, and he's a defensive wizard, and he makes that one little clutch hit, I'm all for it. But the thing is, we just don't know if we're going to get that Ben Williamson. Just like same thing with Cole Emerson. We don't know if we're getting the Cole Emerson that we all want. We just don't know.
Yeah, and there's other things too at third base. So, I think what's most likely there, again, I do think, and they said they were interested in bringing Gino back. Now that could have just been lip service because I'm sure personally they like Gino, so they're not going to be like, we're not bringing him back. You know what I mean? So there could be something to it. I think more than likely what you see is I could see them doing like Williamson and like Ramon Urias or something, someone to kind of like just kind of be there along with Ben to kind of be like, hey, if we don't think he's quite there, this is what we're going to roll with at third. I think the thing is Gino might end up getting too expensive. That's why I'd wait. Like if his market dwindles and he's kind of still, because he could be someone that just doesn't have, because he's going to be 30, he's 34 right now, so he's going to be 35 probably here soon. What kind of market is there? Now, if someone just like you said, a winter meeting comes out and goes, nope, that's the guy we want, 3 years, 45, 50 million, then no, you can't do that if you're the Mariners. But if, it dwindles and there's just nothing there for him, he's someone that becomes more intriguing as you go deeper, to me at least. That would be my take on it if we were in the front office. Each day that goes by, but I mean, Gino is sitting there, like we could call him and maybe he'll take Polanco's deal from last year, and maybe that's not a bad idea. So I think it really just depends on where he ends up going or what the market is and bears for him. But I personally would not do anything more than a 1 year, like a 1-year deal. But we'll see. Like you said, there's nothing guaranteed. Like I like Ben. I think he can improve, but he's still got to prove it, right? He still hasn't done it yet. We don't know. And I can talk about the launch angle and the power, but that's a lot easier said than done. To be like, oh, just change your swing a little bit and you'll hit home runs. Everybody would do that if that was so easy, to do it. So there's a lot to be, still a lot of questions there. It's a Mariners infield that is a little iffy, right? Because you're not sure at third. JP is like okay, but you're not sure about the defense. Second base, like Cole Young's defense wasn't great and kind of dropped off, and you got Naylor you're fine with. So it's an infield with some questions, and Gino at least brings you that stability. So I will say that.
Well, and yeah, of course, like he does really just have to perform, and we will have to see. But hey, if the Mariners do get, if they do get not Polanco, if the Mariners do get Suarez based on that situation, like the whole he became the McDonald's cheeseburger, you got to make another. You got to say that again. And by the way, I don't know if I've already shown it to you already, but I am uploading the video right now, and I do want to show it to you again in front of everyone else. Here it is. Here it is. I'll show it to you right now. This was how we reacted when the Mariners got Polanco, and of course I was like, oh no, of course this is their best move. But here it is. Here's the.
I kind of use the analogy in my videos, probably a terrible analogy, but like, if you're starving and a McDonald's cheeseburger sitting there that's been sitting there for 45 minutes, it's kind of nasty. It's a little cold, but you got to eat. It's better than not eating. And I don't want to say, I'm not trying to be that negative on Polanco, but like, you had to get better, and I do think he's better. It's fine. I think they're better today than they were yesterday.
It's probably the safest take that you possibly could have taken, and boy,
and Polanco was outstanding.
And now he became a 90s McDonald's Big Mac or quarter pounder.
He was the extra value meal. I will say this. I won't make that analogy with Gino because like Polanco was legitimately really bad in 2024, right? Like he was legitimately not good. It was just whatever's on the roster right now, Polanco is better than. Gino is kind of an interesting because Gino was good last year. He was a good player. I just don't know, in the ballpark how he's going to perform. So it's a little, I wouldn't do the McDonald's. I'd have to think of a different analogy for Gino because man, that was like,
it depends on timing too. Like
exactly.
Like if the Mariners get him in winter meetings, then it's like, okay, Mariners got Gino. There's not really much to make a joke about. And like they just did it, but we don't know. So I guess we'll have a better idea on next week because that's when things are going to heat up. And
I will say too, like it is one of the reasons like I kind of hate the offseason because I kind of like want to see the whole plan. Like Naylor, okay, we know they needed to do that, but it was kind of when they traded, Kellenic and they did those moves in Gino in 23, and we're like, what are they selling? Like, what are they doing? Then they trade for Polanco and Raley and Santos. Now Santos didn't work out, and they signed Garver. So it's like, okay, they're doing these moves to kind of fill that in from behind. You don't have to like the moves, but like, okay, you can kind of see what they're doing overall. So I almost like, part of me wants to be like, just, I'm going to go hibernate, wake me up in February, and let's just analyze the entire offseason. Because Jerry gets, outside of last year, gets creative, right? So there's going to be some weird stuff. So if they sign Gino tomorrow and it's like, oh, this is terrible, he's old, like, let's see what they do the rest of the way. Let's see what their game plan is with this. So I always like to wait out off seasons now too, because I don't want to get too reactionary to things. Naylor was fine, but not fine. Naylor was great. You needed to do it. There's no second guessing. Naylor's fantastic. Bring him in. And I'm not saying like if we got Skubal tomorrow, I'd be like, well, let's wait and see what they're doing. But there's always other moves that come in behind that make more things make sense. So it's always, and I think that goes to your point too about just not knowing with some of these guys too, right? Like it's tough. And until we have the final picture of what the team's going to be on opening day, there's so many question marks always.
Always will be. So we'll have to find out. So everything we're doing, we're just basically having a glorified chatter as if we're eating dinner. That's what this conversation pretty much has
McDonald's
been.
Cheeseburger.
Yeah, I guess we are at McDonald's. I'm having that quarter pounder I'm having that quarter pounder meal. What are you having?
I'm still a Big Mac guy. I still every now and then I like a Big Mac. I'm also hot and spicy, a double cheeseburger. I'm a sucker for the fries. Um, I don't drink caffeine, but every now and then, like I'll have a Coke from McDonald's, like rarely. But I don't drink coffee anymore either. So, um, like I try to not do the caffeine, but I'm still a Big Mac guy at heart, even though they are not the same. Maybe I've just gotten bigger, but I swear they have reduced themselves in size dramatically
No, it
since the
has.
90s.
I had it and I was like, well, that's not happening ever again. So, and
And the
now,
prices were ridiculous.
yeah, tell me about it. Just go to a food truck or some small man's place and you get a better one there. A couple more things to cover. We got on this day, the Mariners made that huge blockbuster trade at the end of the 2018 season going to 2019, where they traded away Edwin Diaz and Robinson Cano to the New York Mets. And that's what the package that brought Jared Kelnick, Justin Dunn, Jay Bruce, Justice Sheffield. How in the world do I still remember this? Because this was the trade where I think I was hibernating as a Mariners fan from end of 2016 to like the tail end of 2018 ish. Yeah, it was the end of 2018. And then when I saw this trade, I was like, finally a rebuild. And of course, all the other Mariner fans were like, no, we're gonna suck next year. The sky is falling. But I was like, whoa, but look at that guy, Jared Kelnick, and I'm glad that they did that trade because that's what got me into crazy diehard following the Mariners once again. Because like, okay, let's see what this rebuild can do. And here we are. We're now complaining about what are the Mariners going to do to hopefully put themselves back into the World Series. But just like what, almost 8 years ago, we were like, okay, where are the Mariners really going to be? Like we didn't even know, and now everything kind of just fixed itself. And so, I mean, that was my take on that trade. Like, what was your initial take when that all happened, when that purge happened?
Yeah, rebuilds. I'm with you. You're usually kind of exciting, because you go, oh, okay, like we're gonna get to see some young guys take their step, and the Mariners needed to do it with where they were in the AL West at the time. Then you also go, crap, we're gonna be bad. It's like it's fun on paper. Then when you start watching games, sometimes like, oh man, that's right, we're not gonna be very good. I thought that was a fantastic trade though for the Mariners. Cano was they needed to get that contract off the books, and he had just been suspended and just wasn't the player he was. He was trying to play some first base, and he just collapsed after that. And at the time, and it's kind of funny because Edwin Diaz was like pretty bad in 2019 for the Mets, if I remember correctly. I
He
remember Mets
was
fans
really
were
bad.
freaking out because he blew a bunch of saves. And they got back a haul, right? I mean, Jared Kelenic was one of the coveted prospects in baseball. It is kind of funny though. I think that trade is a great reminder to everybody to not like lose your, what, no matter what side of a trade you're on at a point. Because I know Mets fans like they were excited to get Diaz and everything, but it was like this is a lot to give up for a relief pitcher and an aging Cano. And you look back in that trade, and Diaz is the only one that's doing anything. Like Dunn and Bautista are out of baseball. Kelenic is probably going to be toiling, somewhere in the minors, I'm sure, just because of his pedigree as a prospect. But that's about it. The veterans are all gone. I mean, who else from that trade? Is Diaz the only one even in Major League Baseball
I think
in that
so,
trade?
yeah.
Unless, yeah,
And we haven't heard much about Justin Dunn and like Justice Sheffield in quite some time. But also, crazy thing was too that Justin Dunn was also part of the trade package that got the Mariners Eugenio Suarez. So
comes
I
full
mean,
circle,
to
doesn't it?
evaluate that trade went in so many different directions, and many different things happened after that. So, but now I want to go into last final announcements because we're over an hour, we're capped, we're over the cap, so we got to get rolling. But the first one is I have taken officially the first steps, like official first steps to return to Peoria, Arizona, or wherever the Mariners are going to be. I want to do Peoria because they were an easy spot. The stadium was very easy to get a seat, do our podcasting for an hour, and then watch the game. Because I remember when I tried to call Scottsdale, the Giants place, where all the cool kids of the Mariners were playing. That's where Julio was at, and like Cal Raleigh was at. And the game that we were at, it was like Polanco at third base, and got to see a little Ben Williamson. Because of course, the Giants are like, well, if I let you in, then I gotta let everyone in, and we're the Giants. That's the vibe they gave me. The Mariners are like, oh yeah, sure, yeah, just sign this paperwork and we're good, man.
See, Jerry and Justin are fine. The Giants were getting arrogant, and Jerry and Justin let you into their homes.
They're like, yeah, sure, just sign this paperwork so you can't sue us, and yeah, just do your thing and sit there and enjoy the ride. So that was a lot of fun. So I plan to do that again, and J Trident and I will work together to have another hour-long podcast, or who knows what we're going to
Definitely.
do throughout that spring training trip. I don't know. Like, I just taken the first steps for it. And then final announcement, this is not even baseball related. I've actually that Special Olympics basketball team that I probably told some of you about throughout all my shows. Last few years, I was just a diehard fan of my best friend's team. He plays for Special Olympics, and if anyone was wondering what Special Olympics is, it is a league consisting of athletes with disabilities, including autism, Down syndrome, or any kind of disability that you can think of that have impaired these players. But at the same time, Special Olympics has done an excellent job giving these Special Olympic athletes a great opportunity to compete and be able to get an opportunity to compete for championships, or just to compete to have fun. But I am now officially a third string coach. Like, I went from a diehard fan to now the third string coach, where I'm trying to get more involved with the team. Now, in terms of doing content, that's probably not going to happen, because I don't want to put players' names on there, because I've also understand that the Special Olympics community is also like, you kind of have to ask them if they even want to be on camera, and permission slips have to be involved. So it's pretty unlikely that I'll go too much detail into it. But hey, I'll be like, well, hey, this was my road trip to the tournament, XYZ. It was fun. Maybe I'll share a picture of food that I ate at the tournament. But yes, I'm officially part of a team, and hopefully that any mentorship I have for these athletes, it will lead us to a championship.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a great cause and a great thing to do, and more important than the Mariners for sure.
Oh yeah, like, this is actually funny enough, because Seattle still doesn't have a basketball team. Like, this whole Special Olympics thing is my NBA. That's like, I mean, think about it. Like, when I was a fan, I get free courtside seats, VIP access to practice. I'm friends with the players, cheer for someone I care about. Like, it was awesome. I'll take it over NBA, especially with people that I know. Well,
Absolutely, absolutely.
it is, yeah. That's gonna do it. And J Trident Podcast, thank you very much for being on the show once again. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of opportunities where maybe by next week we're going to complain about Suarez went to another team, Mariners didn't do anything, they stood pat and just stick with Josh Naylor, or they traded away like a Randy Arozarena, Logan Gilbert. I don't know. The sky could be falling by then, but we'll see. But at least we'll have something to talk about by then.
Anytime.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and go Mariners.